minutes, the voting of the minutes to the agenda. Or actually, would someone like to make a motion to add, that reading? Seconded. Jolie, did you get that?
That's Tom and Jane.
Everyone
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so the first item is introduction and rules. We're gonna go around the room. It feels like school.
Yeah.
And then we're gonna move on to online.
And the owls follow me. so
The
this is
owl
perfect.
following.
Everybody, welcome. For those in person here in Cheshire and those online, my name is Brian Klimkowitz. I'm the Special Education Division Director at the State Department of Education. And I also wanted to introduce someone online, Clara McCoy, who's joining us today. Clara is interning with the State Department of Education and the Bureau of Special Education this year. Sitting into our meeting, so I don't know if you want to wave hello, Clara, online and say hello, and we really appreciate you joining us this afternoon or this morning and afternoon.
Absolutely.
Hi, thank you for letting me join you. I'm so excited.
Hi, I'm Sean Cronin. I work with Brian in the Bureau of Special Education and working with the process.
Sean, woo.
Hi, I'm Josh Martin. I'm the director of Statum.
I decided to shut up and there goes Kyle.
Good morning, everybody.
Oh, cool.
Tom Cosker, advocate of Civil Rights Connecticut, and also there.
Catherine Sum, representing Aging and Disability Services, Bureau of Education and Services to the Blind.
Jane Hinton Smith, representing the Connecticut Parent Advocacy Center. Jonathan Metcalf, as parent.
And we'll go ahead online, Missy, if you want to assist and have them
Excuse
folks
me.
online introduce themselves.
Brian, before we go ahead and do that, can I just ask the members in the in person when they are speaking, if they can just speak a tad bit louder?
Sure,
Okay, thank you.
You're
Just
welcome.
because, yep, thank you.
we'll use our teacher voice.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much.
Yes, I just want to say, this is Missy Wrigley, and I want to say hi to everybody, but I do want to say that we do have closed captioning on, and it is picking up most of what you're saying, although if you speak louder, it would be helpful. I have to chuckle sometimes because Tom, I just want to say that it said that you were from Africa, and so I thought that was really cute. So just so you speak a little louder, that would be good. And so I'm Missy Wrigley. I'm a consultant at CERC, but I'm here as a parent. Allison?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Allison Copey. I'm a regional director for the Bureau of Rehabilitation Services, and I'm here representing that agency.
Anna?
Good morning, everyone. This is Anna Wittig. I am the Chief Administrator of Oak Hill School, but I'm here representing CAPSEF, which stands for Connecticut Association of Private Special Education Facilities.
And Denise, I'm just kind of going down the rows here. So Denise?
Good morning, I'm Denise Drummond, policy analyst with the Commission on Women, Children, Seniors, Equity and Opportunity. I'm also a board member of the RCT, and I'm also a parent.
Jeffrey?
Yes, hi, Jeffrey Spar. I'm the Deputy Corporation Counsel for the City of Norwalk, and I'm also a parent of a young man on the autism spectrum. I'm also on the chairman of the Legislative Committee for the SAC.
And I want to sit where you're sitting, Jeffrey, by that beach.
Yes.
There. Lena?
Yes, good morning, everybody. I'm Lena Esposito and represented the Connecticut Family Support Network and also I'm a parent. Thank you.
Woohoo, Lena.
Lori?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Lori Fortuna. I have two beautiful children on the spectrum and with some other special needs, and I'm here as a parent.
Well, Clara has already introduced herself. I don't know, Matt, if you want to introduce yourself. That's up behind our scenes. Jolie, do you want to introduce yourself?
They know who Joel. Hi, Jolie, support staff to the State Advisory Council. For the few new members who may be wondering.
We'll see. It's always important to let us know who you are.
Ah, thank you.
Is that it on your end?
No, we have Mia.
Yeah, Mia.
Maybe she stepped out. Michael, are you there?
I am. Good morning. Hi, everyone. This is Michael Scanlon. I am the Youth Coordinator, Connecticut Parent Advocacy Center. I am here as an individual with a disability, and I'm here representing students and youth.
All right. I'm not sure the pronunciation of the next one. Somebody help me out.
I'm going, sorry, I can't see the list that you.
Tallarital.
Talarita. That's new Talarita.
Talarita. Oh, thank you. Very nice.
You're welcome, Mr. Louis Talarita. Hi.
Hi, Louis Talarita, Connecticut State Department of Education, McKinney-Vento designee to the Advisory Council.
Very nice. Welcome. And I don't know if Tyler's back yet.
Hi, yes, I am. Sorry. Tyler Young, special ed teacher at Bristol Public Schools, representing the special ed teachers.
Thank you for joining us.
Excellent. I think that's everybody unless Mia is back.
Yes, Mia.
Okay.
Yep. We have one more.
Where? Did I miss somebody?
Brian, yeah.
Brian.
Brian Smith, assistant regional.
Where's Brian? I don't see him.
In person.
I was on Zoom and now I'm in person.
He's here.
Oh,
I was like, we both missed Brian. That's not gonna be good.
I saw his name earlier, but then it wasn't here, so I said, Brian, I would never ever leave you out.
That's right.
Okay, so we're going to move on to council purpose and function. Under the authority of the Connecticut General Statutes, the Connecticut State Department of Education maintains an advisory council for the purpose of providing policy guidance with respect to special education and related services for children with disabilities ages 3 years to 21 years in the state. More detailed information is on the Connecticut State Department of Education website. Public comment. Jolie, is there anyone here for public comment?
I do not. The only public comment I have will be expected to attend via Zoom.
Oh.
I have someone who's interested who may join.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, yeah, okay. All right. So we're gonna, so there's currently no.
I will let you, correct. I will let you know if someone joins. I have no beeps on this end at this time.
Okay.
Letting me, identifying or indicating that someone's on the line.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. All right. So old business, we have added to the consent agenda. The April 26th Sackville Council minutes need to be approved. So are there any corrections to the minutes? I have a couple and I believe we're going to fix them later. Where it says motions made by and seconds, both sections, and for the consent agenda and for membership update, we just need to put names in. That's the only correction we have. Is there anybody else with any other? Okay, would somebody like to make a motion for the approval of the minutes with the corrections that will be made later?
So moved.
Oh, Missy first, and then Catherine will second.
Thank you.
Any abstentions from those who didn't attend the meeting? I can't see. Oh, Mr. Josh Martin.
And we have Allison also here and Denise.
Okay. Jolie, you have all that?
Yep.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
All in favor of approving the minutes with the corrections that are to follow of the April 26th meeting, please raise your hand online. Looks like a good vote. Everyone's approved here, Jolie.
Thank you.
council meeting minutes are now approved. I just quickly, online, are you getting me clearly? I'm trying to speak a little slower because I'm pretty quick.
I can hear you clearly, Missy.
Closed captioning, just want to make sure it's picking me up.
Yeah, as long, you're right there up front. So I think it was just difficult with the introductions with people sitting in the back, more towards the back of the room, but I think you're fine at this point.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. All right, we are going to now move to the membership committee report. Catherine Sum.
Okay, all right, thanks, Susan. Okay, so attendance update. In the past year, we've had very good attendance. Typically, our attendance is higher when the meetings are virtual than in person. And I think today may be an indication that the
Hybrid might be a way to go for the future.
yeah, I think that we have more people online than in person today. So, but you know, it doesn't matter if you attend, that's great. That's what we want. So keep up the great work, everyone, in terms of attendance. And then moving on to our membership update. We do have a higher education representative, Mary Beth Bruder, and she is not here today. Brian, I don't know if you have any additional information to share about Mary Beth.
Sure, yeah, so as you know, we had a vacancy for our higher ed representative after a longtime service from Joan Nicole Samt, who resigned and retired from her position at CCSU. So the membership committee was working on replacing that position, and for those of you that don't know, Mary Beth Bruder works for UConn at the in the USED, and I know we have an acronym jar, but I'm not sure if I'm going to get this right. But we work with.
You can do it.
Do you have it? Connecticut Education of
Center for Excellence in Developmental Disability.
Tom Kosker.
I worked there.
You saved me 50 cents, so thank you.
I worked there.
But Mary Beth Bruder is a very experienced special educator and is involved with the State Department on a few different initiatives. Currently, she's overseeing our Aspiring Leadership Program, where we're helping to support those individuals interested in going into special education leadership in Connecticut. So this is our second year cohort with that partnership. We also partner with the USED around our early childhood activities in supporting students, our youngest age students who are just entering the public school. And then Mary Beth also supports an Aspiring Leadership Program for those interested in Part C of the IDA, which is working with youth and toddlers before coming to the public school setting. So Mary Beth was very excited, and she wasn't able to be here, but would be honored to be considered as the higher education representative for the council.
Great, thank you. Susan, do we want to make a motion?
Sure.
To vote on her, before we proceed? Okay, would anyone like to make a motion to accept the candidacy of Mary Beth Bruder?
Take that one.
A second,
Second.
all in favor?
So it was Nachi and then Tom.
Thank you.
Great. And then more good news. We have a new case representative who is here with us in person today. Dr. Joshua T. Martin, he is the Director of Pupil Services in the East Haddam School.
Just to correct, I'm not about.
Oh, you're not? Mr. Joshua T. Martin. So we're so happy to have you here. We're thrilled that you could make it, and in person especially. And I don't know if there's anything you would like to add and share with the group.
So I've been a director for, I always count, I'm not great, I think about 11 years now. It's kind of goes by really fast, and especially before that. I have 3 daughters. I live in Vernon, and one of my children has
Well, thank you. Welcome. And does anyone have any questions for Joshua?
I work in East Haddam, Vernon. I live in Vernon. Nice work. Present reading from, for both ways. Three daughters or go in for me.
Thank you. And so would someone like to make a motion to accept Joshua? Okay, and second?
Jane second.
Okay, all in favor?
Jennifer and then Jane.
Thank you.
Wonderful. And just to keep the nominations going, we have a student candidate. And so a little information, his name is John King, and he couldn't be with us today because he is at his summer job. So he's working Monday through Friday, every day this summer. And John resides in Burlington. He is a high school student. And the nominating committee had an opportunity to meet with John in the springtime, and he really is a very enthusiastic young man. And I think that he will have a lot to offer to the council. He just wants to promote special education and an awareness of special education, and really a man. And he is sorry he couldn't be with us today. I don't know if anyone has anything they'd like to add. He was also part of the interview panel with. No, okay, I think we're all in agreement. He's just really lovely. So would someone like to make a motion to accept John as a new student representative?
John will make a motion.
Lena made the motion over here too.
So-
You know, online people.
Looks like online already seconded, Brian. Lena beat it to it. Sorry.
Oh, for three today.
That was John with the initial on our end and Lena with the second on your end.
Thank you.
To put your hand up first when it's time to vote. So all in favor? Okay.
Thank you.
Still go 1 for 4 before the end of the day.
Thank you. Okay. And so that is the membership committee report. But does anyone have any questions for the membership committee? Okay, great. Well, thank you.
Would you just confirm what we're still missing?
One student representative, yeah, one student representative, and fingers crossed, there may be something in the works there. Maybe a little more data in a couple of months. And then we have,
Corrections. The corrections department,
yes.
Department of Corrections.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. I received mine.
It was someone
Yeah, somebody after my.
after my,
It's like, shows her something, had to come out.
yeah.
Yeah. And then in terms of state representation,
They're all.
Five.
All of them.
Yeah, 5 vacancies from the General Assembly, 1 in corrections, and then 1 student.
So those are.
So we're pretty, I mean, it's a great place to be in summer, yeah, for leading into the year.
Right.
It would be great. I just, a quick comment.
Yeah.
This is Tom. I think it would be great if we could all reach out to our representatives and maybe, I know it's summer, they'll be on vacation. No, wait, no one, October, it's fall, perfect. We'll be back in the office. We meet at the LOB and see if we get, even unofficially, someone to swing by and stop by. That was when we had a little more success getting them there, right? Our legislators, the few that we had. We can do that, you know, and again, I know we all have connections, many of us have connections. That have skin in the game, so to speak, in special education, but it'd be nice to get a couple. Even if they show up once every, you know, we had some on there that I never met, but you know, they're sort of on it. All right. Also, if we are going to maintain a hybrid model, that opens the door up for greater levels of. Sit in their office.
Yeah.
Yep. So, I mean, having you in person, I can see, you know, you spread way there, where it's been. But being hybrid, it doesn't afford that opportunity. And our meetings are shorter than they used to be.
Yes.
Right, we used to have the 5 hour,
Yeah.
you know, knock down, drag out, now it's like hour and a half. So, good job. I'm happy to-
That's not me.
I was guilty of the 5 or 6 hour job, so I'll own that.
So
Anyway, yes, good job, guys. Thanks.
Well, before we move on from membership, though, there is the presentation of the slate of officers for the upcoming year. So,
Jump over our.
yeah, no, that's okay. Yeah.
Okay, so, we have two candidates. I don't think this will come as a surprise to anyone. Susan Yankee as chair and Jen Lupier as the vice chair. And, you know, I'm thrilled that the two of them are so enthusiastic about continuing in their roles. And you two have just brought so much to the council in the past year. So, anyone have any questions about our candidates? No, well, no questions or comments. Would someone like to motion to accept?
So it's a little different than emotions. We're gonna have to take a vote, an anonymous paper vote,
Oh,
which I just realized. So online, Missy is prepared. And there is an opportunity for folks, if they thought and reflected, to put their hat in the ring, so to speak, and be a write-in vote. So we'll just take a moment to just ask if there's anybody online or anybody in the room here who has rethought, had an opportunity to think and would like to serve in either the role of chair or vice chair. Thank you, Tom, for. Yeah, I appreciate that. We're doing makeshift ballots here on our end, but Jolie, Missy, could you let me know if there's anybody online who would like to throw their name in the ring as far as being the chair or the vice chair for the upcoming year? Ballots.
Other than me, right? Skip.
You vote for it. All right, so we're just taking a few minutes. You have the poll going online. Thank you. Missy.
Thank you.
Hey, Brian, can we be heard on the
Yes.
candidate?
Yeah, we can hear you very well.
Well, I'd like to say that I just think that Susan has been doing a fantastic job and that Jennifer, as always, is doing a fantastic job, and I fully support both of the candidates.
Thank you, Jeff.
You as well, John.
I just have my dial. I'm gonna be right speaking. Anyway, James. You right in the end, I'm throwing it in the garbage.
What?
I was wondering, can we project what people, you know? Huh.
Once we do, once we try.
What?
Sorry about that.
Maybe it's where the candidates are.
That'll be better. It's more like interactive. We're tallying now on our end.
Thank you.
Ten votes for Susan and 9.5 for.
Almost a unanimous.
10 votes.
Okay. And it looks like, Missy, there was 100% unanimous on virtual as well.
Yes, there is.
Awesome. So we have a unanimous step for the chair and the vice chair. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And thank you both for your time and service in advance.
Thank you, and thank you to the membership committee for working so hard and for our discussing a succession plan. Working at this.
Yeah.
It's too new for succession.
Oh, Jen's talking the word.
Quickly, I just want to say, thank you for being the chair again. I've had the privilege of working with Boston chairs and it's a lot of work. All the work you put into it, a thoughtfulness that you put into it. For helping set a collaborative.
Thank you, and I want to thank you for only using my text. Mentor and Brian and Jolie and Sean, everybody being a mentor, and whenever I have a question and put my foot in my mouth, everybody's on. So thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so now I'm officially here. I can give the executive committee report. I'm just gonna touch on two quick topics. The first one is an update on the special education task force that we so wonderfully were actually just officially legislatively voted in to have a seat on. Thank you, Jeff, Brian, everybody for making that happen. So the recent services. So everywhere that it says special education, they put in the wording gifted and talented students and services. Our last meeting, Education Commissioner Charlene Tucker was so wonderfully attended, and the meeting focused on attracting, retaining, and supporting teachers. So we had an agenda, but everything seems to kind of gravitate to every meeting goes back to supporting teachers, attracting teachers. Members voiced concerns that the shortage of special education teachers is causing the students' needs to go unmet. And Commissioner Russell Tucker said the State Department of Education is convening a group to examine and make decisions about how teacher certification can better support a 21st century teaching force. She also stated she's working very closely with the CEO of the company that developed the Connecticut SED, the State Special Education Data Management System, to ensure that CSDE is addressing issues, excuse me, and providing support to teachers and parents. Next meeting is August 8th at CAPS, which is the Connecticut Association of Public School Superintendents at 9:30 a.m. Online. This meeting, the next meeting that they have will be on YouTube. Past meetings, you can find them on YouTube. So also next bylaw revision.
Susan, just one quick
Okay.
comment on the special ed task force. So
Mhm.
one other change in the legislation is that they pushed out a year out the report.
Oh,
So there's still a preliminary report due February 24, which is just right around the corner, but the full report is now in 2025 because of the additional members and the additional topics. So,
and I was going over, I have it right here,
yeah,
the changes. I noticed that it added the prohibition. We're gonna also go over the prohibition of the use of exclusion under section 10.236B of the general statutes and implementation of alternative methods in lieu of seclusion for population. Any other issue or topics relating to special education. So it sounds like the task force is rolled, the task force that we've been requested to research restraint and seclusion has been rolled onto this task force.
yeah. So there's one of the provisions in there says that any topics determined by the special education task force. So even though there's specific items, the
Mhm.
task force comes together to provide where the focus should be, and then that leads to the recommendations. But you're absolutely correct in that the restraint and seclusion legislation that was on the books did not go through, it didn't pass. So there's the special ed task force is one of the entities that's going to look further into studying and understanding the restraint and seclusion, the current status of, and making recommendations for that.
Wonderful. And I'm also hoping as we go along in our meetings, that we can make sure that we are looking at most of the topics that the task force has, so that
Yeah.
that the SAC,
There's an alignment.
that there's an and that we have a voice and a consensus. So that is Public Act 23-150, if you want to look it up online. Okay, next.
Yes.
Okay, wonderful.
Thank you.
Okay, the bylaw revision. Our last full SAC meeting, we talked about adding paraeducator position to our council. And this was due to, we constantly bring up paraeducators, and we thought we really should have a voice on the council. And so we sent out for revisions to the bylaws. And I'm going to make a motion, and then we'll have discussion. Okay, so it is the revised bylaws are Article
Sorry,
4.
Susan, so just,
Okay.
so ask for a motion to accept the revised bylaws and then the discussion.
Oh, I don't need to announce what the revisions are?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, great. Okay. I would like to would someone like to make a motion to accept the revised bylaws to add the addition of a special education paraeducator?
So moved.
The attachment is on, yeah. Did someone make a motion online, Jolie, so we can have a discussion?
Missy did.
I thought that was Missy. Yep.
Yes, you did. Okay. So yeah, so now that the motion's in place, the council can take that discussion. So,
Oh, who seconded? Who?
You have it?
there's not, yeah.
Jonathan, when you're done with it.
You might not.
Okay.
Yeah, so I can describe and I can also project here for those in the room, the revision.
Would you like me to put it up?
If you have it, Missy, I think that would be helpful.
She's right.
Sure, yes.
Forward him, Julie's, you know.
Yeah, Sure.
Great. So it's just the rest.
Bear with me for just a sec.
I got a copy of the ones to see.
Yeah, I don't have my two drive up.
Can you guys see my screen? Are the bylaws up?
Bylaws are up, yep, for your online folks.
Thank you. Let's see. Yep, I see it.
I can make it larger for you to see it.
Ooh, nice.
That's.
I'll just be a sec for me because I have to get into our K drive.
Yeah.
It is.
Retina scan.
Yeah.
That would be so much.
Mission Impossible. Yeah, that would be.
And then they don't. That's why. I can't mind, but. Oh, very good. Like, no, that, I got my product.
We're just waiting for them.
You can start if you'd like, unless you want to wait until.
So how are we defining special education services? Very many.
Right.
Meaning that puts the back and forth.
Meaning, would a registered behavior tech considered a special education para, or is it a job coach who fit that role as well as defining it as non-certified staff member student in the school, or are we saying something different?
So I can answer that. So-
Brian, could you please repeat the question because we're not hearing it here?
Yeah, so Josh raised the point about the various titles that non-certified staff have in districts. Registered behavior technicians, paraeducator, paraprofessional, job coaches, and so forth. So the way that the executive committee addressed that is not in the bylaws, essentially. So the bylaws say special education paraeducator working with students with IEPs. So if the individual is working to support students in IEPs, that's really the main perspective that we wanted to have as part of this group. And then the membership committee would then get interested parties, and if there was an application from a job coach and an application from a registered behavior technician or a paraeducator supporting students in early childhood, you would have an opportunity for a discussion, and then that would be brought back to the full council. So the way the bylaws are written, we could never identify all the different titles, and we'd have trouble. We didn't want to overly narrow it down, but didn't want to make it too general. There was also some discussions to ensure that para-educators and approved special education programs would be considered, or para-educators that work in charter schools or magnet schools. So it's really open to those actively working in the field. And I think one of the points the executive committee made is they wanted them to be active. In other words, not just have a role for, within the union or within legislative process, actively working with students. But having said that, if the language isn't, up to your standards, or you'd like to try to revise it or table it, all those options are open on the table for today. And the one caveat with this bylaw change is that it's not legislated. Like our student members, these are through the bylaws, we're able to expand through the membership committee, what we call ad hoc members of the council. So eventually there's no letters, it's just through this process. And, we always say too, if there's interested members of the public that want to attend regularly, they're more than welcome to do that as well. But there is one position added formally through the bylaws, through this revision, if it's approved.
Brian, you said the word active special education para-educators, because it just says identified interested special education characters and active Connecticut students with disability. Should we be adding the word active? It's in the second one. Okay.
Yeah.
Actively employed, beautiful. Okay, thank you. I didn't do my own thing.
Yeah, sorry, I'm not able to project. It's
Anyone?
my
want to say?
computer's still thinking.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. It's a woman of her. But that precludes someone from staying, someone's a special education parent and parent member. Participating, right?
Well, I don't
Oh,
be
no.
on as one or the other.
Yeah.
Right, so they would be on
They
one or
feel
the other.
role as.
Right, I mean, many of
They
us are
could be-
parents and they're on as a parent or on as some other role, but yeah, if they're on as a parent. Educator, then,
Just a bonus.
yeah. I thank you for the executive committee for doing it, because I think it's great, as a parent of a son who has a lot of interaction with our educators, it's a huge part of his education, so. I mean, having that voice at the table, I think, so I appreciate it.
Missy, is there any discussion or hands up questions, comments online?
Any questions from anybody here? I don't think so, Brian.
Do you have a
Great.
motion? So we
Yes.
just need a.
Okay,
second.
so, is there a motion on the floor to bylaw revision? We already did that,
We
right?
did the motion, so you just need a second.
Okay, is there a second to approve the bylaw revision? That's Jennifer. All in favor, please raise your hand because we have to have a count.
Those online, if you could do your reactions and raise your hand if we don't see
You need
your
a two,
face.
you need a 2/3 count. We have 10 of 10 here on our side.
Okay. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on my side. Six.
Five, okay. Opposed? Is everyone opposed?
No opposed here in the room on our end.
Abstention? Okay, the motion passes. Thank you, membership committee.
Membership committee has to be more recruiting.
Another vacancy.
Catherine, can you confirm what vacancies we have? Yeah, right.
And would you like me to go over the meeting dates?
Sure. Do you want to scroll down to the meeting dates, Missy? So folks can see that online.
Is that in the slides?
Yeah, a couple slides down. Oh, yeah, a few slides.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, you can go through those. We'll back up. Yeah, there it is.
Okay, we have different dates on our agenda. Right, is that what you just noticed?
Yeah.
So the agenda. Yeah,
The agenda, what's on the agenda is from last year.
oh,
Yep,
okay,
up through-
thank you.
Yeah, so that's up through,
Bless your heart.
yep, except for today.
Oh,
So
did that-
we highlighted in yellow as we go through. Oh, did you plug in calendar?
Yeah.
My fault.
No. I didn't. mean to be clear.
Oh, I'm in the black calendar.
LOB, okay.
So Jolie, the meeting dates for next year, as far as saving the dates on the calendar, have members of the council received calendar invites yet, or were we waiting today? Okay,
I think I don't think I had, I think I held the dates, but let's see.
I'm probably on our calendars, but yeah.
Can you give me one of the dates quickly? Just the first date. at least.
September 13th is the first.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me just, I can confirm that. No, it doesn't.
Technical question from Big Boss. Did we book the LOB to Jolie?
No. Did we book the LOB for this upcoming year?
Fifth at 9 to 1?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
That gets a little challenging in the fall.
Yeah, so this is these are the proposed dates for next year, so not formalized necessarily. We're gonna formalize them in May. Didn't have the meeting, so this is our, rescheduled meeting. So these are the dates that were determined. There's still room, to make adjustments and things like that. We want to have at least one meeting in the legislative office building. We want to try to have it before the legislative session starts, so that's why that's targeted for that. And so we also talked about doing hybrid meetings, that even if we're in person, to have the opportunity to use the technology like this. And so this was the format last year of 3 in person and then the 5 virtual, and then a determination if the last meeting is needed or not. So that it's a similar structure that we use, like you mentioned, Tom, shorter meetings, hour and a half for the business purposes, and then the longer sessions, we have more active discussion.
And I was wondering what people thought about putting the legislative breakfast, have the legislative team work with Jolie on making that happen and organizing that. I don't know. Jeff? Jeff?
What was the question?
If, as far as working on the legislative breakfast overlapping with the meeting at the legislative office
Oh,
building for in person, so to work with the executive committee on it, making that happen. Of course, we would support.
Right, okay. I just wanted to know.
Yeah.
Jeff,
Tom,
many hands available.
A couple thoughts. One is certainly on the January 17th, if that's in person, we need a snow day of the week. So we can put it on our calendars.
Yep.
Generally, we put it on the calendars later. I like the fact that the other winter-ish ones are virtual. There's only one winter one. So that's cool. I would propose switching to April and May, because if needed, we didn't have it this year. I'm already reading that as like, we probably won't have it May 22nd if needed, but probably won't have it. Like, that's what's going through my mind. Because it's May and it's almost the end of the school year and everyone's in, you know what I mean? So, which means we only have 2 in person, you know what I mean? So I'm an in-person kind of guy, so I would propose switch and do April 24th as an in-person and switch and May 22nd as the virtual. Anyway, that's just a thought on my end of discussion.
Because it worked really well this year when we had that, and then we expand the April 24th. And then we expanded it and we had everyone eat their lunch and we had a quick work group on priorities. It was really productive.
Beautiful circle.
In the beautiful circle, and we're missing Brooks next.
So that's my only thought with this. I mean, I love the pattern and the in-person remote, it's good stuff,
That's a great suggestion.
but.
How does everyone feel about that?
Right.
Did folks online hear that suggestion from Tom?
Yeah, I think it's a good one.
Is everybody online okay with that? Yeah,
Okay.
looks like a lot of nodding heads.
Okay.
Something else I want to say is I was, I think you were in the legislative office building last November, is that right? You guys were in person, I wasn't able to be
Yes.
there. It was really hard to hear. I wonder how everybody's doing there. if we can figure out a really good place, LOB is LOB, but to make sure that the sound is good for the people who are virtual.
Mhm.
Because I found, I was in a circle and for something else, it's really hard to listen in.
Yeah, I feel like we didn't fully utilize the technology in that
I think
room.
I think we can. do
Was
that.
kind of, yeah.
Because the task force meeting was very good, with the screen up.
Mhm. That was up there at the CAPS building, right?
No.
Or the
very
one in
first
the
meeting,
LOB.
Yeah, you could clearly hear people.
Yeah, because they were on the screen when we did it, they were on my laptop.
Okay,
versus
and they're on the screen.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. I don't think we hooked into the capabilities of
The USAID actually has a great space for. Like a really big screen. And I find
Yeah.
Really good.
Yeah.
They have,
Really good. Okay, so we'll go ahead and flip flop the April and May dates.
So when we. did it, how beneficial. Moving of the virtual are gonna be hybrid. Or everything's gonna be hybrid, or the in-person hybrid. The in-person could be hybrid.
Virtual's
versus all
100%
So
virtual.
everyone's virtual, everyone gets a Zoom link, we all
Okay.
sit at our offices for the virtuals.
Good question. Yeah.
That's a good question, Josh. And then 3 in person.
Yeah, we'll like reframe that to be hybrid option for those who aren't able to make that.
Right, the black housekeeping.
This is it. This is something. that we're-
Brian,
Yes, Missy.
so just a comment for hybrid, if we're going to do that, I think that works out for many people, but those people who are in person, if they have their devices and they can still log on to the Zoom meeting, then when they talk, everybody will be able to hear them. So you can still meet in person, and then you as the presenter could share your screen so that everybody is seeing everything at the same time. But then if they open up and they're participating in the Zoom also, then, they could have done the poll just like everybody else. Then they could have also, when somebody talks, it would be much easier for people online to hear everybody in the room. So just a thought if we're going to do, because I think the hybrid is nice for people who can't do the travel, but it's a little bit of a disadvantage because we don't hear some of the back and forth that's going on out in the room.
Yeah, the audio is always the tricky part.
Yeah.
If they work through the technology. I'm just wondering, but if people have, like, if someone's laptop's a laptop right next to each other, how's the audio like feedback on that? Is sometimes the nightmare.
Yeah, they would stay muted just like we do
It would
here.
have to be like, you'd have to mute every other one or something like
You have to
that.
meet them all.
But then would they hear you?
When you're
Only
talking.
when you talk.
Only when you're talking.
When you unmute.
Right.
Volume off there.
Right, it gets a little tricky.
It gets tricky, yeah.
Brian, question. Is there gonna be a problem if we do a hybrid as far as with math?
With what?
Is that a complex math issue as far as streaming is concerned? I thought that was.
Yeah, I mean, well, we're streaming this morning, so I don't know. I think it's just, it's definitely complicates things, but that's on and we're streaming online. I assume the folks that are listening to the streaming are having the same audio, like difficulty hearing people in the back as folks online.
As hard as
The
it is.
streamers can write in.
Yeah,
and
as
let
hard
us
as
know.
it is, it's future in person, we all know that.
Yeah.
So we encourage you to drive in and there's slips to get reimbursed for your travel and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
If you can, I know it's not easy.
But accessibility is something we'll work at and work on and make sure that we have the best technology in place so that folks can hear and participate. So I think that's a really good suggestion as far as May is always hit or miss.
We end up failing on it more often than not. I
May-
think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so April is good. The only thing we should check on is April vacations. I think that's
24th seems
after,
late enough.
I think that's after.
Wait,
April
the
break.
parents are gonna check, hold on a second.
Yeah.
Parents are okay, all right. All right, Jen. April vacation is the week of the 8th.
Okay, so it's
for Rocky
early
Hill,
April.
Good anyway, and the Greater Hartford area.
It's usually 2 weeks that districts kind of split between. I think
Yeah.
It's the
probably
second and the
week,
third,
and we're on the fourth week.
and
so
this
I
is the
think.
fourth
Yeah, but Good Friday's early, so it's been the first.
Okay.
one might roll into that.
for a lot of districts. Yeah.
Mars this year.
Okay.
So, and it's all right into that first week of April.
Folks are checking their April break calendars on our end.
I don't have it.
Brian,
Yeah.
just a heads up that I was given the information that at 450 Columbus, we now have in the meeting rooms, we have there are overhead mics that take care of the audio. So
Oh, awesome.
when that location is convenient, we can keep that in mind.
Great. Thanks, Jolie.
Thanks, Matt.
All right, any other discussion on the? Okay. So Missy, scrolling back a couple slides, just back to the annual report. I see that's good. Yes.
Where did you want to go, Brian? No.
The annual report, which is right after the task force, next one.
Oh, right here.
Just to got all the problems with having someone sign it on.
So, yeah, so Susan, I don't know if you wanted to talk about the timeline for the annual report for this upcoming year. And I know we're working on
Right,
priorities
priorities.
today as a main focus. And we talk about as a council, getting together the annual report on the earlier and prior to the legislation. The legislative language requires a report in January and February every other year. But I know it's been an interest of the council to do that earlier.
We
And so
had a
fall
date,
submission.
and we had a date of June, but we have not moved forward on that. Originally, we had a date, we were gonna try to get everything combined this last month. A short for Mr. Hoffman for that, which was amazing. Just a quick, short infographic of our priorities. And so that we have them for the legislative breakfast, is that correct? And then are we gonna try to get, I don't know what the next date will be, I'm assuming it would have to be by December, we would have to have this done.
Yeah, so if we're, yeah, I mean, so that's. I think we push up to try to get our priorities set and established by, after that September meeting by October, like you said, we'd be able to hand out information to the legislators, even if it's not the full report that then of all of our meetings and activities. At least we'll have the core content of what's important to you all to hand out. So it's just a discussion for the group to have and the executive committee to have to see how we can put that together. I actually have a sample of an infographic for our priority session that you can take a look at. That other councils have used pretty effectively. So instead of a legislator picking up a report and reading 17 pages, it's just one page of your 5 priorities or 4 priorities.
And for people that are new, the annual report, do not worry, that's something the executive committee puts together. Based on our discussions of priorities and recommendations. And this goes to the legislators and the Connecticut State Board of Education, Department of Ed, and then also admission, as Tom suggested, with just brief priorities and recommendations, is that we can get the legislators to talk about it and create legislation instead of how we feel usually when we're chasing legislation. And trying to say here, we're here, and also to get the legislators to actually reach out to us. And get them to meeting so that they can, because this group has the voice of so many different perspectives.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. I think, the sooner we can get it, if we can get it to them for that October. I mean, I can picture us being at the LOB in October and having our meeting there and inviting folks, and we're talking legislation, we're handing them that piece of paper. That would be huge, right? That 1 or 2 page thing to say, this is what we're doing, this is what we're doing. So as they work on the legislation in the fall, we know by January, it's way past January, February, for them to add. But as they're starting to develop their ideas of legislation, they're doing that in the fall. now they say, oh, wait, these guys can weigh in on this, these guys are a voice. They reach out to us and say, hey, look at the bazillion things that Brian's gonna go over in a few minutes that happened last year. But if you're not in on that conversation early, you're responding, which Jeff and the group did well. But it's really helpful to be in on it. So I appreciate you pushing
Yeah.
for that and doing that earlier, because I tried it for years when I was on it, so it's hard to get done. So that's great.
What's the print date for your department to have something like that? When do you need it so it's printed in time for?
Yeah, I mean, it depends, printing's easy.
Okay.
It's just a matter of, because it's your document, so it wouldn't necessarily have to go through our approval process
Okay.
In the Department of Education. So once you approve it as a group, we can then print and or distribute it, post it on the website.
Okay.
So we really don't need a lot of upfront time to be able to turn it.
Our date could be September 13th, that September meeting, so we could kind of
Yeah.
vote on it and discuss
Yes.
discuss it, right? So really, we should have the drafts accomplished before then, and I know this is getting early, but vacation.
You could have a
August.
draft by the end of the day today.
We could,
If we
no, we
roll up
could,
our
exactly.
sleeves and.
No, that's great, yeah,
get-
but ideally by September 13th, when we're there together, and it's like, here it is, everyone, all members, let's vote on it, we approve it, bang, and then we're ready to hand it out, email it out. And all that,
Ambitious, but it's doable.
Right, and we don't need all the other sections that we have to have.
Right,
done,
exactly.
Which is
Exactly.
the hardest part.
Yeah, that takes a lot of coordination. and
Okay.
time. Ryan has his hand up.
So I'm gonna beat the horse to death right now. And this goes back to really getting the legislators to that, because if they are part of this, they're part of the conversations and it can be a collaborative conversation of what they're hearing of the LOB and bills possibly coming up and providing feedback to us, allowing us to stew on it. So we're not chasing it. We're not chasing legislation. We're part of the discussion earlier rather than later. So I would just, if we can just get confirmation at some point of which particular committees we should look at in their membership,
That's easy, we know that.
right?
already.
Of that really has the greatest impact. We all know appropriations, right? But, and trying to get those members and trying to strategically looking at who in this room is tied to some of those members and engaging those before we start just randomly touching on somebody who has no connection to education or special ed. I think that would be helpful. So use the summer months, reach out to their offices and saying, have that conversation. So we are always chasing the legislation. And we do it in our agency, we chase the legislation, but whatever we get to the table, having these hybrid models, I think it would be to our best interest. That way we get ahead of it or at least alongside them in some of this conversation.
I totally agree, Brian, and this is Tom again. I was fortunate enough to connect with some legislators this past year and some of the pieces of that came through. And we reached out, period, and some of the others on the education committee, which obviously the key one, right? And there's some really key players that I had connected with that want to hear voices, any voices of people that are teams of food. So they're there, they want to listen, they will listen, they invite you to come to their hearings. But they'll be happy to invite you, either come to us at our meeting when we're there, or invite us about any of these topics. And then children's is the other one, and not to put Denise on the spot, but Denise, I know, has connections, Denise Drummond has connections to a lot of those folks, on the different committees, especially children's. She worked on, with some of those members as well. So I think we have some of those connections here within us, and yes, just leveraging those and talking to those folks.
And this is Susan. So past year, my Senator Christine Cohen sent the legislative flyer, which is online for anyone who's a new member. Go onto our web page, and there's a flyer. You can see your legislator that explains what their responsibilities would be. And she sent it to all those committees, invite from her, and nothing. But so I
They
think
want to
we
hear
just have
from
to keep-
you as
right,
their constituent. When I email my senator or
right, Christine.
representative,
Christine sent
then
that out.
they're like, oh, it's Tom from Rocky Hill.
Right.
That's different than hearing from a fellow.
Right.
Because
And that's why this
It
legislative
is.
breakfast, we have to get
yes,
reserved at LOB and get that breakfast.
we gotta invite our peeps,
Yes,
our
invite
legislators,
them. That's
invite
gonna
them,
be
get them out
huge.
there. And they generally don't show up, and they're usually in the building in October anyway, so.
Yeah, You're right. So we're not chasing because I know that's so frustrating. I know it's so frustrating for the executive committee to constantly be writing letters and then no one even posts them on, they didn't even post them on. And I can't for testimony. Okay. Sorry. Yeah. Guess that leads us to our.
Right. Yeah, so just a couple real brief announcements. I know we have just about over 15 minutes left for our business meeting this morning.
Cut you short, bro.
Don't, yeah.
Only got like 72 slides.
Yeah, that's okay. But that our IDA grant was approved last month, so we're very excited about that. So that's the money that we received federally. That is a flow through to the school district. So that was approved. We received information on that. The state of Connecticut met requirements for our OSIP determination. We'll talk a little bit more about that through the year, but similar to last year, only 23 states in the country met requirements. Connecticut's one of the 23, and so that the other categories of needs assistance or need substantial support and assistance were there. So we're very proud of the work that goes into that, but know that by no means does that mean that our work is not done and that there's significant challenges that we're facing in our state. But it's always nice to see the recognition and the stakeholders of which the advisory council is. I'm very much a part of it. And then finally, we're very excited about a nearly $6 million grant that we were awarded the State Personnel and Development Aid. We just heard last month, and that's going to expand our IEP quality training and supports and services throughout the state. And so we're partnering with the USAID and CPAC and CONCASE to roll out IEP quality training in addition to what we're doing, focus on math. We have several initiatives related to reading, but this will be a focus on high quality math intervention and goals and objectives for students. And then also we're partnering with the Office of Early Childhood, where they're developing high quality IFSP, which is Individual Family Services Plans modules. And they're working with AIR, partner that we work with on the IEP quality training. So there's going to be alignment from birth all the way through 22 for this support. It's very exciting. The first year is planning. The State Advisory Council will be part of that planning and implementation. We're working with a small number of districts in year 2 to pilot the expansion of this program, and then statewide implementation is the goal after that. But
how many years?
5 years. 5 years, $6 million. So bringing resources to Connecticut is always a good thing. Looking forward to the partnership.
Yeah.
Go team. All right. So just a quick note about back to school. September 8th is our special education back to school convention at the Connecticut Convention Center. We have an awesome agenda planned. The commissioner will be welcoming everyone along with our new deputy commissioner, Cynthia Sonia-Mayor. And we have Valerie Williams from OSIP coming in virtually to give a 15-minute overview of what's happening federally and recognizing the work that the districts have done. It's the first time OSIP's attended our conference, so we're very excited about that. And we have Nathan Levinson, who was formerly of the district management group in Boston, that's going to be speaking towards supporting special education teachers and addressing a bit the what's contributing to some, from his national perspective, the vacancies and the challenges that we have in filling those roles across this, not only in Connecticut, but across the country. And in the afternoon, we have breakout sessions. There's also some awesome student presentations. Catherine was able to connect us with a couple of students that are going to be performing and sharing. And then we also have the Southington Unified Theater is going to be doing a quick walk, like back to school for folks in the audience. So we hope that you can all make it. If you're not able to make it, we will be streaming the morning, so you'll be able to hear at least those activities. And in the breakouts, mix of presentations and networking opportunities. So often what we hear from our special ed leaders is that they're rarely all in the same space at the same time, so we're trying to provide space and time around topics where the special education community can talk amongst each other and to address some of the challenges in the state, as well as recognize the success. Questions about back to school? All right. Okay. Anybody need to stretch?
Get ready.
No, yeah, ready?
You're gonna
So-
need a nap after this.
Yeah, so it goes without saying, we're gonna need to wait. It goes without saying that there was a significant amount of legislation this year that passed that will impact students with IEPs, which is our interest here today. So the slides I put together are just summaries. It's not the comprehensive language that's contained within the bill. But I wanted to highlight those that impact our students. So the first one is Senate. So the first bullet here is the Covenant Act, which is important. And I meant to put the links directly in. So when we'll go ahead and share this back out with you and put the direct link so you can see the language and make it easier. So you can put it back up. So the Special Education Advisory Council, we're working with them in consultation with the Special Education Peer Advisory Council. It's a structure that's similar to ours, where the parent educator and the parent educator of the year is a part of that group. And we also have representatives in the Bureau of Special Education and our certification office that attend those. But you can see here that our task is to develop a program for high school students. It's a preparation program so that after high school, students would be prepared to work as a paraeducator beyond high school. So what that looks like, we have a lot of work to do, and you can see our timeline is very tight. January 1, 2024. We do have next gen in educator prep programs that we tap into, like for teachers, for example, that would work with high school students to prepare them if they're interested in supporting students that have exceptional needs. Questions on comments, just let me know.
Is there a target pilot school for that? Yeah.
Brian, are you you're gonna give us a link to this, or will you be able to distribute this independently?
Sorry, Jeff, could you repeat that?
Would you be able to give us a link to this,
Yes,
or send it to us independently as a document or something?
will do.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. So the question was, is there a pilot school district? So the first slide, talks about a model program for high schools to use. So, but your suggestion is a good one. They could turn out to be, working with a small number of schools to roll something out in that context, but we'll see how that progresses.
Is there funding
No,
to the schools to implement this?
no. So not that I'm aware of anyway. Yeah. All right, so Public Act 23-167. So continuing on to section 81 here. This is the Department of Education submitting to the Oversight Committee. Let's see. So, right. So this is our work with the Juvenile Justice Policy and Oversight Committee around students that are expelled and placed in alternative education programs. And there's another bill, I think, another section that addresses that as well. This next, so the same Public Act, section 83 talks about hiring and retaining school social workers, school psychologists, counselors, nurses, marriage therapists. There is funding behind this bill, and it was a continuation of what happened during the last legislative session. And the Bureau of Special Education doesn't oversee this, but the Student Supports and Services and John Drives and all these students oversee this process. So this program will continue. The challenge is that it's not just the funding, it's finding the individuals who are qualified to work in our state. So even having funding behind it doesn't necessarily equate to folks in the seats and supporting students.
Brian, I have a question about that, if you don't mind.
Sure.
So when it's talking about grant programs, provide grants to local and regional boards of education, et cetera, do we know what kind of form that support might take?
What kind of forum you said?
No, form. So for example, you know, I've mentioned this before, and the horse is out of the barn for us, but for going forward, my daughter just graduated from Fairfield University with a master's degree and 6-year certificate to be a school psychologist, but she's had, as part of that, she had to do an internship. So she spent the last year working for the Fairfield school system for free, you know. And, you know, if you're going to want to get a whole bunch of people in to become school psychologists, counselors, all kinds of things that you want to get for mental health, you know, you should be able to have the school districts pay these people at least the amount that they're paying a substitute teacher who's just handing out, you know, sheets, you know. So I'm wondering if some of this grant money, rather than just like having some little slideshows and stuff like that, if they could use it to pay these people, because you know, she's lucky enough that she had a chance to, well, I can't say she's lucky to live with me, but she had a roof over her head, you know, and she didn't, but she worked her ass off, frankly, on weekends and at night at retail stores trying to make money for this. But this is what we really need. We need to be able to pay these people to do the internship.
Yeah, good points, Jeff. We can get further detail on this. There are different programs that are supporting those that are doing their internships. I think this particular legislation talks about grants for school districts to expand those particular related service areas moving forward, but I'm not sure the context and the format yet. Again, we're still unpacking the legislation, which was internally to understand kind of the practical implications of this. So
And I appreciate
get more information as the funding becomes a little more clear, which will happen over the next couple of weeks. We'll circle back and share its specifics with the group.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Okay, so section 4, House Bill, still on Public Acts. Oh, this is now Public Act 23-137. So I'm not sure if we're going to have, again, time to go into a lot of depth on these sections today, but there's a significant amount of new work in the area of secondary transition. And not only for the Bureau of Special Education, but also across our adult agencies and DES and ADS and BESB and even the Office for Early Childhood on the other end of the spectrum for transition. So this definition here isn't necessarily an impact on school age student. It's more along the lines of information that DDS will be looking at, Council of Developmental Disabilities and Autism Spectrum. So Brian, I know like both of our organizations are still really unpacking some of these pieces, and there's new positions and there isn't necessarily funding behind those positions. So we're still kind of working through and navigating that work. But the idea is that each of the adult agencies would have a liaison to work with the Connecticut Special Education State Department of Education. So that there would be a core team working on coordinating all of these new requirements. We do have a core team in place that works, but this would be, the idea is that would be bringing in additional capacity. So hopefully there is funding tied to those positions, but it doesn't look like the funding is there, at least on the department's end of things so far. So section 13, this is the Office of Policy and Management in consultation with Department of Administrative Services, creating a plan to develop a secure online portal to facilitate sharing of information. So this is data sharing between our adult agencies and overseen by the OPM. And the idea and the intent here, and there are a lot of discussions around school age students. So as the students become transition age, is the potential there for those students to be able to access adult services, knowing that on the earlier end of things. And so a lot of the language talks about additional responsibilities for the planning and placement teams to say, here's the information for these adult agencies. And another area talks about a website that would house all this information in plain language for parents to be able to access. And then for planning and placement teams to be able to point parents into the direction so that they understand the potential options for the students. Now, there was a lot of challenges and a lot of information that we shared or concerns that we shared around that, expanding the planning and placement team's responsibilities and or knowledge of, you may be eligible, but you're not yet eligible. So it's more training, information, sharing of resources, and additional responsibilities. that
Brian,
planning and placement team have.
Would this cover what was brought up at our last meeting? Our student member who said that his parents were basically training his guidance counselor on the right colleges that could support him. Would that
So,
fall under that? Training
It
for
wouldn't,
guidance?
no, I think his comments were more related to the supports in higher ed.
In higher ed.
In
but
those
connecting
programs.
them.
Yeah,
Yes,
and
if
connecting
the
them back to the
advisors advise
schools.
you sit down and you, just like an IB, and they said, where, they advise you where
Yeah.
to go and who is training.
This is coordination for state agencies,
Okay.
not higher ed, and the
Just state.
supports and services that are available for students after they graduate high
Okay.
school.
So I thought. 'cause it was-
Brian, Lena has a question. Brian?
Yep.
Hi, Brian. Yes, then, well, I've been receiving some concerns about, the parents that is over 18 years old that they are with Department of Education, special ed. Then they've been telling me that they actually nobody informed them about the guardianship, conservatorship, supported decision making. Then the children pass already 18 years old. Now, what we are talking about sharing information, is not the job of the Department of Education and Special Ed to inform the parents, because I've been in several meetings with the schools, and then the schools say that, oh yes, we told the parents, we put it in the bulletin, but the bulletin is not enough, and then most of the parents, they don't read it. Then how we can make it this one more effective? Because, once again, these laws about, guardianship, supporting decision maker, and conservatorship it's only happening here in this country. You understand what I mean? All around the world, parents, they don't need to do that. We have the rights. Then this is new, and then because it's new, most of the immigrants' parents, they are unaware of this kind of thing. Then that's why if their parents, they are unaware, no, they don't have any information, then they come, they making phone calls, to me or to somebody else, and then they didn't have idea about this one. And then the children, they are already 18 years old. Then I want to know how we can incorporate this one to sharing the information to make it, a little more accessible, and who can be in charge of that, because I know that the schools, they have the transition department, but if the transition department say that they are informing the parents with the bulletin, then maybe we can change it, maybe we can bring it to here to make it a little more public, or how we can do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Lena. Yeah, absolutely. So, Lena, what you're talking about is the change of rights from the parent in the educational decision-making from the parent to the student when they turn 18. And then the conservatorship process, which is separate from the school and which happens through the courts. And that is there is language in this legislation that talks about that and the role that the planning and placement team has. So the school districts required a year earlier to share that information with the parents and families to let them know. And like you said, the information is delivered and disseminated, but is there, are parents processing that and understanding that information? And so back to the website, that there is language specifically that a website should be developed in addition to the resources that we have. You'll see language like plain language, simplified process, But the reality is that these are very complex legal situations that need a significant amount of attention and support for some families. So we will do the best we can to develop resources that are, succinct and interactive through the websites and in different accessibility in different languages. But ultimately, these are complex transitions to navigate for families, especially those that are new to the country.
Thank you, Brian. Lori also has a question.
Okay, we're gonna go to Brian and then Lori.
So correct me if I'm wrong, Brian, I could be off base on this. The intent of this is if a student is potentially eligible for state services.
Yep.
One of the state agencies. that
Yep.
The placement team would work with the family or the guardian, whomever. The authorization to upload the records to this website so that those state agencies, he or she might be eligible for services, have access to the appropriate records.
Yeah.
So that way, if there is a need for application for eligibility and or if they already are eligible, that we have access to the most current information and there's not a
In
need for
advance.
18 different consent forms to share all this information, but this agency, that agency, that agency is kind of a blanket.
Streamlining. Yeah,
Streamline.
there'll still be consent, but it'll be streamlined.
Streamlined. So
Yes.
It's just warehousing this information that multiple agencies can access it.
Yeah.
Making that process a little easier, but still not eliminating the consent need from the legal guardian or parent.
That's right.
At the time, or the student in and themselves.
Yeah.
That was my understanding. So
Yeah, no, well said, Brian. That's a good, yeah.
Because we collaborate all the time
You
with that.
explained it a lot better than I.
Now we actually understand it.
Okay. Cool.
There was a question, Lori, and then Tom.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. I'm excited that you're looking at this and there's legislation for this, because ultimately, to build on what Lena said, honestly, to maneuver this in the world of trying to figure out what your kids qualify for and not, compounding it with, and I'll just use my case as an example. My kids came into my world when they were 7 and 8 because we adopted them. So I didn't have the whole time that they were in school to really have conversations and to build it on top of the coming out of the pandemic where people were more in silos, because a lot of what, I'm hearing parents find out about these programs for their children, it's really when they're corresponding and talking to other parents. During that time, it was more limiting. So very much needed. Just wanted to echo and say thank you for working on that.
Thank you, Lori.
And real quick, it's Tom. So to Lena's point, and Brian's got a slide on this actually. So there was a piece in legislation this year that actually we worked on at Disability Rights Connecticut on requiring districts at PPTs to inform parents of the decision-making options, including guardianship, conservatorship, for decision-making, et cetera. I realize I'm talking really fast, but I'm trying to talk loud. So that's in there. It's another one of the things that's separate from what Brian just described. Which the other Brian Smith, highlighted as far as sharing information, which is huge and awesome. And much needed. So, but yeah, that's in there this year. Again, it's a matter of making it happen now, as Brian says, right? There's no funding to make this happen, so you got to figure out how to make it. I'll highlight that in a second. I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, Missy here. There is a supported decision-making coalition that's here in Connecticut, and they are creating materials to share with families as well as educators and everybody around choices and options available, focusing, of course, on supported decision-making. But so some of that information will be coming out, and I know they're working on several different booklets to move forward, one of them being kind of an introduction. The other, there is one specific around secondary transition and what does that mean for students. But, there is information throughout Connecticut that's being created to help support families with making those decisions.
And Missy, just to echo on that, the legislation is requiring the State Department of Ed to work with advocacy organizations to get the information. They're not gonna develop it, it's already here, right? We have it, it's just a matter of them
Right.
posting it and sharing it, and then, at PPT's district sharing it, you know? So that is built into that as part of that process. And we worked with the whole coalition on that bill and that language, so. Which you're aware of, 'cause I think you signed up for that. So thank you.
Great discussions, excellent points, a lot to unpack here. I know cognizant of time, Susan, but there are several other slides. I could
Okay.
try to just go through quickly. I
very
mean, I
good.
don't mean to just read the slides either, but I think they're bringing up important discussions. There are additional positions that are identified in the legislation. Again, we talked about funding. So, you know, when the positions are within available appropriations, that means that there are no additional dollars to add to. So we're still trying to realize that, but there was recognition that there would be a transition coordinator within the Bureau as well as an assistant. And Missy, I'm on section 27 now for Public Act 23-137. That talks about the Bureau of Special Education by July 1 and at least annually developing a training program around the legal requirements and best practice recommendations for transition services through online courses and in person. So each of the school districts now are required to have a transition coordinator identified in their district. Some districts already have those individuals in place, others may not. And there is a training program for all transition coordinators to have a gone through or completed standard training. And the Bureau would develop that in partnership with either CERC or West Alliance.
This is the transition coordinator.
Transition coordinators at the
And staff.
local level. Yes. And then we would maintain a list from districts who their identified individual transition coordinators. We already have listservs for transition, you know, throughout, but again, these are unfunded, you know, it's not necessarily funded, so districts may have to, for districts that already have those roles in place, they're all set. For districts that do not, they'll have to figure out, you know, individual special where to do it. All right, for section 28, Department of Education statewide transition service coordinator receive information and advice from state agencies and liaisons. So I described that already, where there would be individual liaisons from each of the state departments that would meet on a regular basis to essentially dive into the new legislation and do the tasks involved. Okay, what is this? Section 29. For school year, I'm describing second. Okay, yeah, so this is what I was talking about, an online listing of the transition resources and services in public transition programs. There's quite a bit of new requirements around our transition. So in partnership with CERC is identified as a primary entity to review the quality of services in the transition programs across the state, to develop standards and to post that information online. We do list our transition programs online already. But unlike our approved private special education programs where there are standards tied to their approval, those don't exist for the transitions programs.
So this is creating those
This is creating standards and then having a process where all of the transition programs are reviewed on a regular basis
Much like that.
against those standards. Yes.
These are programs outside of district.
Could be.
Could be in district too.
Yeah, it could be. Some districts do have their own, others are private.
If it's an in-district transition program.
Yeah.
Then that would count, right?
Yes.
Okay. I hope so.
But it has to be identified as such.
It
Right,
does.
if someone's there past 12th grade, in the district, then it better be a template program, right? Or you can't just like stick it in some other room and be like.
The problem is you don't identify anybody that's.
Yeah, for reporting purposes, the 12th grade is the highest.
Right,
grade.
right, so past that, if they're still in the system and still receiving services, they would have to be in a transition program.
No, there's no past that. It is 22.
No, before 22. I'm saying between 12th grade, and 12th grade, and the age of 22.
But
If they're getting service.
In 12th grade, it is 19 in 12th grade. That's what I'm saying.
They're all reported as 12th grade students. So that's not a way to look at it as anyone beyond 12th grade, because
Oh,
there
I see
is no
what you're saying.
beyond. Yeah, that's just our reporting. That's how we report federally.
On the record, that's. But
Yeah.
Well,
to be
there's,
in 12th grade for 5 years, that's just a ridiculous box.
Yeah.
Check, but whatever. Okay.
yeah, it's consistent across the country in that way,
It's still
because it's
ridiculous,
really the
but-
age is the important piece
I
of
know,
it.
I know.
Yeah.
But
But we do
anyone
have
in those
our,
transition programs is covered by that.
Yes.
Right.
yeah,
Despite the
but
fact that those- thank you.
yeah, but students can receive transition services and not be in a transition program. So that's just something to be aware of, because
Yeah,
there's
okay.
individualized services. So if you have a program that
Right.
serves only students that are of transition.
I got you, good point.
And then the transition services programs can't, they don't award credit. So that's another difference than our app, well, the APSEPs all work with the schools, and there are some APSEPs that are able to deliver credits. But so this would be a parallel of our approval process through the APSEPs now for all of our transition vocation programs. So a significant amount of work needs to be done around that. But we struggle with this because when you overly focus on program, you miss the intent of the IDA, which individualizes the student's needs. So there's a fine balance there, and we're always trying to identify and highlight that, you could have a standard program that's wonderful that doesn't work for a student that is 22.
Yeah, not to belabor, the reality is districts are low to individualize the program if you're supposed to, and even though that's the idea, they often jam them into a set program. When, because that's what he says, right? I mean, that's what I see. And when I talk to parents and students, they end up in a program that might not be the best fit because it is a program, right? And I know that's not the intent, but that's often, I'd be curious to see the numbers of students receiving transition services in a program, transition program, versus individually, designed and receiving services. I think it's pretty low on the individual thing.
Yeah, and
Like,
that,
pretty low, like
yeah,
single digit percentage.
I mean, that's the role of the planning and placement.
I
team.
agree, Brian.
So,
I
yeah.
totally agree. I 100% agree. I
Yeah.
just think the reality is there's not many that are in that individually programmed.
Everybody goes there.
Transition
for
services.
TJ Maxx. Yeah, regardless of pre-law.
And just in the town or the individual out of district transition program, that's just the most common. Large. Anyway.
Yeah.
But I'm glad this is a huge thing. Whoever pushed that, which I don't know who it was, but that's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
It's a challenge.
Yeah, and a lot of this information we have, it's just a matter of putting it together and putting the structures in place to be able to. deliver it.
Right,
And
right. And
it's
standards,
time,
that's
it's
it.
time, and it's obviously time consuming and, but necessary, and
Yeah.
it involves on-site visits
Yeah,
and all those
that's-
different pieces.
Yeah, that's good.
So this slide, section 30 talks about the training, which I mentioned early for transition coordinators at the school level. Section 33 requires the State Board of Education to develop a Bill of Rights for parents of children receiving special education services. So there's been information at kind of the national level around Parent Bill of Rights with special education. And so we have a transition Bill of Rights in Connecticut already, but, and we have information on the rights that parents have, so we'll have to try to unpack this a bit to see what direction we go in and what that looks like. That's, an additional requirement for the State Board of Education. We already talked about this, section 38, about CERC's role in reviewing the public transition programs. Section 41, these are the plain language. You'll see again, plain language throughout. Resources for students and parents, for students who are 14 in making decisions and those eligibility pieces. So we've already discussed this a bit. Section 42 talks about the planning and placement teams. What is this? So this is the data sharing, Brian, that you mentioned, at an aggregate level, being able to share between agencies for students that turn 14 to assist in the adult agency planning.
Giving numbers to the other state
Yeah.
agencies saying this many kids are on IUP.
At this age.
At this age, at this age, at this age,
Yes.
so they can plan.
Also,
Yeah.
Yes, get some pretty decent.
yeah, it's also based on disability.
Right.
Awesome. So we've been
Awesome.
disability.
And the other BRS and DMS can do that plan.
Yes.
That's big. Okay.
We've got the data to share.
Yep. Oh, boy.
That's a
Okay.
lot of-
Tom, what's on this slide?
I don't know, I can't see
All right,
it.
Okay, mediation. So this is another area. So that was, I mentioned there was two areas, one around secondary transition, the second around mediation. So this says that the Bureau of Special Education will hire a mediation coordinator so there's a training aspect of this where all the mediators in the state would go through a training program. We do train our mediators, but this would formalize it and set a standard requirement across all mediators. There's grandfathering in current mediators that are in place, and then making sure all new mediators that are hired moving forward would go through this program and meet these criteria on an ongoing basis. And you can see C there talks about the exemption of up to 5 mediators that we currently have in place. Mediation was particularly an area of interest for the legislation because they hear positive things both from the school district and the parents about experiences that folks have during mediation. And they're wondering how to tap into that resource more frequently. Our caution around that is that the parents in the school districts have to agree to go to mediation. So even if we had a cadre of 100 mediators, it would be based on the districts and the parents agreeing to go to mediation. And we also talk about the sort of topics that are brought forward to me. And so there is an appetite to, it's less expensive, it's less of a formal process than due process for parents and hopefully leading to positive outcomes. So. All right, so section 47 in the same bill talks about translation on websites and ensuring, again, that plain language is available to families and accessible.
Was it like to buy top languages?
There are 10, yeah.
Okay.
Well, we use 10 in the Connecticut Special Education Data System, but this is making sure that it's accessible. Like we have Google Translate, but this is ensuring that at least the top languages in the state are covered in that hard copies. So conducting audits this is the Department of Education conducting special education audits randomly to oversee the implementation of IDEA. So
Is there a number on this? Of how many or whatever, like?
there is not a number, no.
Okay.
But
Yeah,
so-
one, even if I'm just kidding.
yeah, so again, there's
That's
the,
tough.
the language that came in was unannounced random visits of schools and districts and programs incorporating in our general monitoring supervision process.
When do you have to have that?
So,
Brian?
yeah,
Yeah, just to go back to the other one about the plain language, just to note for the rest of the council. The legislative committee had advocated to include within the plain language that there be American Sign Language included in that.
interpreters, which absolutely is in place. And we're talking about resources that are online here with the plain language, but
All right, thank you.
yeah, absolutely. Jane, back to your question about the date of implementation there. I don't think there was a specific date listed, although we'll go back and check. So I can talk more about the general monitoring and supervision process that we have and the different components, and I know that a lot of you are aware of that, but this is a new consideration. Well, we inform districts. Yeah, so it would be showing up at East Haddam unannounced, saying we're here to look at A, B, or C. That's really the biggest component of it. And so, general monitoring and supervision systems are based on support and then accountability. And, you can't have accountability without support. That's the idea. And that in very effective systems, there's an awareness of the priorities that are the federal government and the state government. Sometimes there's an emphasis on compliance, and then that shifts the results, and then it's a combination of compliance and results. So there has to be an awareness. I mean, if you think about, the requirements, the basic requirements are consistent, and Connecticut does an amazing job around compliance in general. The pandemic turned us upside down, but even still, our districts take a lot of pride in the compliance end of things, but is it resulting in the outcomes that we want it to? And so we have to think about, what is the purpose of an unannounced visit? What are we looking for? How will the district benefit from it? How are the students and families going to benefit from the process? So we wouldn't go into those discussions alone, and the state advisory council is going to weigh in. Our school districts are going to weigh in, and so we'll make sure it's integrated in a way that is effective and efficient on what the outcome is. Because a good system also not only identifies the issues, but also highlights the positive of what's happening in the district and events there. But we have a lot to unpack.
Yeah, it gets announced.
Yeah.
But then, like a week before you have to turn everything in, you get a list of SASs. Signed student IDs that say, these are the students I want to look at. And then you need to have strong systems to make sure that everything is going correctly across all of the PTs, all the schools. If you don't have those strong districts, it doesn't matter if you're announced or not.
Yeah.
And not like they tell us, we're gonna be looking at these 20 students in year out. And make sure that their PTs and IPs are all looking good. They tell you that they're going to be asking for something, and then they 10 days to.
Yeah, it's a good point. We do unannounced virtual things a lot around record reviews, and like you're saying, you don't have a heads up on the 20 students we're looking at in that particular area. But as far as on-site visits, we have to know what we're coming in to do, and the district, usually hosts us when they create a space for us and I'm thinking unannounced means, we'll be coming, doesn't mean we're gonna, we still need a place to work. So I don't know if it's unannounced, meaning we're gonna be there next week and here's what we're gonna look at. Is that considered unannounced? Tom shaking his head no.
Show up, give us a gym, cancel gym class. Show up.
Someone's on a field trip, that's okay.
That the state government announcements by mobile home.
That's
So
right.
that way, have your own workspace, right, in a satellite office.
Yeah.
There you go, surprise, when you see that big bus go in, you're.
Yeah.
Brian, doesn't CT says preclude you needing to be in the district? I mean, you can just access the IEP.
We will be able to do a lot. So, we're going into year 2 in implementation. We're learning the program, and so are we. So there's a really great capabilities. One example is our complaint process now, where our complaint investigators used to say, send us, packets of information. They're able to go in and view that and talk about our desk audits. So Josh, you mentioned, we would go to the district and say, here are the SASA numbers, send us, and we would get packets of files that were sent to the department for us to review. We no longer have to do that, but we only have last year's. I mean, technically there could be archived information, but there's only last year's IEPs in there. So it's something we'll have to build over time. But this year for our desk audit, we're looking at the new IEPs from district, and we'll notify the districts, and they won't have to send us anything. We'll be able to. So that'll cut down a little bit on the copying and the mailing costs and so forth. Yeah.
Joanna. Sorry, I want back to section 7 really quick.
Yeah.
Which is the translation of the website. Is this including the attachments that are on the website?
So often on the website, you can change the website language and the information, however, the attachments will remain in the language that it has been uploaded in.
Mhm.
So you may have many resources, but then when you click on them, they're in English.
Yeah.
So when it's specific to this, the resources, are those pieces gonna be available in multiple languages, those attachments?
I don't think the public ask goes into any specificity, so it's gonna be up to the, team working on this to ensure that. The intent is that all the content there is accessible in the different languages, even the uploaded documents. So we'll definitely be tapping in and making sure, yeah.
Brian.
But there's work to be done there for sure. Yeah,
Brian, just on that note, as long as those attachments are not PDF,
yeah.
you can use the translator services. So if it's put up in a Word document or another platform, you'll be able to do the translation.
And we do tell parents, the thing is that most parents, it's a lot of technical things to
Correct.
do, to download, to upload, and that process.
It's just one click that then start translating everything there. It's already. So PDF doesn't want that.
There is a Google PDF translate too,
Yes.
but you have to do that again, another step.
You can, but. Parent, that's second. Oh, school.
No. What is the state? Just convert it.
Yes. There's a lot of stuff on there. but-
Brian, we have another question over here from Lena.
Okay, thank you, Lena.
Yes, hi, Brian. Can we add additional time when a parent needs a translation? Because you know that it takes more time.
Yeah, so Jean's question was to clarify, are you asking for at a planning and placement team meeting for translation?
Well, actually, for the PPT, for the IEPs, for all the meetings, because when you need to translate it, it can be a Google Translator or it could be somebody right there in person or anything like that. Then we need some time to, it's double job because you need to say it in English, say it in English, come back.
Yeah.
Then it's still the time frame that they give to the parents is the regular time frame that they give for somebody to speak fluently English. Then we need to double the time if somebody need a translation.
That's a great point, Lena. Yeah, so there's no requirements on time. That's more of a local level decision as far as in a scheduling decision, but it definitely, that point needs to be made, for the team to make sure that they get through the content, the purpose of the meeting. And it does take additional time if you have a translator, so that it's a very good point. But there aren't any timeframes that we set at the State Department or legislatively around those meetings. Okay, we're at 11. How would we like to proceed? There's still several slides on the legislation. We haven't gotten to the expansion of the maximum age of eligibility, which is a huge impact on our state, and both fiscally and programmatically for students now, where previously their students were exited at their 22nd birthday. Now they're remain eligible until the end of the school year in which they turn 22. So those individuals that turn 22 after July 1 this summer have a whole nother year of eligibility, unless they have seen the regular high school diploma eligibility. So that's also in this same bill. The informational handout, we're going to be working to give students a handout that based on their grade. So I think the delineations for early fall, like kindergarten all the way through. And so we would love to tap into the youth advisory groups to help us with this. But again, what it means to have an IEP, what it means to have a Section 504 plan to the students. Okay, This is making available on our website, corrective actions required from the department.
Brian, just in case you didn't see Michael's reply, he said he would absolutely like to assist with that from the youth perspective.
Awesome. Thank you, Michael. Yeah, absolutely. We'll be tapping into the structures that we have and, trying to get a broad group of stakeholders to assist with that document.
What's this public act? Can you scroll up a tiny bit?
Sure. 23-150. Yeah, this is new. Section 15. So this relates to the complaint process, the special education complaint process that we have, and making that information available. There was originally a proposal for us to post all of the complaints like we do our due process decision, but through the process, it ended up with the information that we would put summative information on the website along with any corrective actions that were a result of our complaint investigations. Okay, Public Act 23-150, sorry, it's going back and forth. Again, the Parent Bill of Rights for parents and students who are multilingual learners. So we talked about the Parent Bill of Rights earlier, and then the safeguards and protections there within. And then the Para-Educator Council developing model program for best practices to support the para-educators. And again, back to your point earlier, Josh, we're incorporating all stuff, not just paraprofessionals, para-educators, whatever their titles may be in the districts. 23-159 that allows authorizes the integration of early childhood special education and birth to kindergarten endorsements in lieu of the full plan program. So providing some flexibility to school districts for our younger population. I think this is the last one. Section 23. This is about the teacher evaluation program. Again, not necessarily directed towards students with IEPs, but important in that including the paraprofessionals and paraeducators in the PDAC councils at the local levels and make sure that they're involved in the local discussions around professional development and teacher support.
Wonderful. Can you share this slide? Because they're
So-
so well put together.
Yes, they should have been sent out earlier, but what I'm
Oh, we
gonna,
did?
yeah, what I'm gonna do, Susan,
I
is,
looked at them on slide. Okay.
yeah, there's two different slide decks.
Okay.
So what I'll do is put the links, attach the links to the
Oh,
public bill so that you can click right in the slide.
Yeah, because really they're all different bills than
Yeah.
what we actually looked at this year.
They got merged. and
They
all
got-
that crazy.
Yeah.
And then you need to go
Yeah.
to public act at this point to really.
Yes, yeah, because there's a lot of repeats and some amend the others. So the public act is really the link that you want to focus on. And like I said, we're still unpacking a lot of this. We met just as recently as Monday to try to get in more depth and understand the implications here. But I mean, for the purposes of the council, like I said, the age 22, expanding the maximum age is now. That happened as of July. There's no runway for the schools and the districts to kind of implement that. So we're trying to make sure, and we've been working with DDS and the case managers because DDS graciously decided that they were going to honor those placements for those students that have birthdays in the summer, where if they did have a DDS placement in a location start date, those families can choose to accept that and decline the expanded services from the school districts. So there was a coordination that's happening, and we're hopeful the districts, have the information and understand the implications and are reaching out to families, especially those in the summer where they may think that they're being exited still in July, they're not there for the requirements. So we had the used to be the end of the school year, age 21, and then the AR ruling came down where it said 22nd birthday, and like this legislative session is being so within that act, that's a real practical, on the ground, happening now implication for legislative reform. Tom?
There's a million pieces to all this, and I just wanted to say thank you to you and your team, because this is a lot. I know that you guys have on your plate. Like, this is an exceptionally large year for changes. So we appreciate everything you guys are doing to try to roll out these million things. And we'll still ask questions and be like, why isn't it happening yesterday? And the deadline September such and such, but
yeah,
even when we're asking those and calling you out, we appreciate it. Sean, your whole team. I mean, that's you guys, there's a lot that's going on. Because I know there's other pieces you didn't highlight.
There are, yeah.
and other little details in there that just are too many. You'd spend a day just talking about it. So I appreciate it.
We just spent a half day today.
I know, right? Like, it's a lot. It's a lot.
And one positive thing is they're all focused in a lot of the majority, not all, but on transition. A lot.
Yeah.
There's a huge focus on transition in the city of Connecticut, from your agency, from our agency to other agencies. So that collaboration is critical in your, so what we do today and the next day, we're gonna do really coming up. Yeah, that's what I've been doing all morning, Brian, answering questions about
About
that.
Yeah,
Cause I got some.
causing a lot of confusion and a lot of clarification needed, but
Brian, I have one question for you. Do you have a sense of how many kids that were set up to start in summer went ahead and did that, or did some of them choose to go back?
We're still navigating that data right now. I got one who's going back to school, who had everything all in place and the awarded and then called their district and said his name. So we're working through that data. We'll have that by October, November, because the window that Brian was describing is July 1st through September 30th. It's just those 3 months. Anything after 10/1, they're going to June.
Yeah.
And we're planning for them for next fiscal year. And we as an agency have to report to the Office of Policy Management, because all those resources, those dollars have to be pulled back from our budget and shifted to the next fiscal year. So there's a lot of conversation. Yes. Yeah. We're hopeful that the late August and September are going and not taking advantage of it. It's just, it's still July ones and early August.
Are you the ones who notified the parents?
We've been doing as much of that as humanly possible, because the districts didn't get their guidance until last.
it was sent out
The end of last week,
Last-
last Friday, right?
Friday.
Yeah, they're all.
Yeah, they're on
Wow.
they don't.
Well, yeah, DDS went out the Wednesday before and ours came out the Friday after.
And there are students that are choosing to go on any, right? I mean, at any given year, there's
Yes.
students that choose to say, I'm done, despite this law, despite any of this, there's students that say, I'm 20, I'm 21. Peace out, I'm done, I'll figure it out with DDS and work through that.
This is a huge year for us graduate life. We have about 500. Total statewide, so it's a big year for DDS. So it's a lot of conversations about 100 or so grants. For those first 3 months. Then we have those conversations.
So Missy here, and I just want to say that I'm very excited that secondary transition is getting the attention that it has needed for many years now. So it's a good thing.
Yeah.
Thank you, Missy, all your hard work on it too.
Brian, what happens if the district doesn't have a transition program? If they just eliminated the position?
Yeah, I mean, that's a larger question about any, but what happens in that case?
Nothing written.
Good question.
Nothing written in there. Right, I mean, there's nothing right in there for his teeth on it, at this point.
Yeah, I mean, so, the district would probably, there would probably be communication to the district, informing them of the legislation, informing them of the requirements. And then, typically if there's infractions in state legislation or state law, there's a citation, potentially. I don't know what the consequences would be, you know, I'm thinking about staffing shortages too, but the people are facing. Could be another potential area as well. The district in this case would probably identify an individual, meet that requirement and say, we had a transition coordinator that the district, you know, because of budgeting purposes couldn't cover. They had to cut, and now this person is on transition coordinator.
Right, because there's nothing in there saying it has to be this
doesn't have to be
full-time person, half-time person, whatever. So you could say,
Somebody doesn't
Jay,
have
you're our
always that.
transition person, right, but I mean, that happens a lot.
Does that have-
Right, so you just have to say, you now have that, your name's next to that thing,
Many districts can be
right,
either special.
Special ed,
right, exactly. You're now that person at that point.
One more
Right, right. But, and it's getting the attention of it anyway, it's probably there already anyway, because it's in that first bucket anyway. Yeah. It's getting the attention, and so then maybe the Board of Ed will say, okay, we'll stick a half person in there. or something, you know.
Good question.
Want to move on to adjourn?
Sure.
Yeah. Good. To adjourn to the next. All right, would someone please make a motion? Josh.
Hey, Josh, it's good.
Yay. A second?
Second.
Oh, okay, Jonathan, great. All in favor of adjournment? Yeah, let's go.
Yeah.
Adjourned at, I don't have a
11:11.
Who gave the second?
John
John.
Metcalf.
I'm John Metcalf. Hi. I missed
He's waving.
that. Yeah, but I gotta get him on attendance. I don't know how I missed John. That was just, hi, John.
So,
Quick
do we
break.
want to take a 15-minute break and come back at 11:30?
Yes.
So
15, not 15, but 30.
10 to 15.
10.
10 to 15.
15 minutes late.
All right,
All right.
fine. We're gonna convene again at 11:30.
Subway.